and then she'll take. So for the speaking time, Omowunmi, you have 35 to 40 minutes for speaking. Thereafter, we have questions for 15 minutes. So I'd like to introduce our speaker for the day. Omowunmi-Emmanuel-Ogah is a pharmacist, and she's the co-founder CEO of XCare Pharmacy. Funny enough, her initials actually read CEO, so she's CEO and CEO. She's focused in preventative health medicine, a business strategist and healthcare visionary dedicated to closing primary healthcare gap in Nigeria. As the CEO and co-founder of XCare Group, she has successfully built an integrated healthcare ecosystem that merges retail pharmacy, advanced diagnostics, and licensed immunization across different centers, community-centered hubs. She's also a data-driven leader. That's when you get to know her, she's always all about data. Recognized for her ability to scale down complex health solutions. She recently secured a 225 million naira catalytic fund in debt funding, and it's a milestone that underscores her expertise in navigating financial landscape to drive sustainable business growth. Under her leadership, XCare has expanded its reach to serve both corporate clients and underserved populations, becoming a trusted partner of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Omowunmi is very passionate about removing barriers to care and empowering the next generation of healthcare entrepreneurs. Through her work, she continues to prove that quality, affordable healthcare solutions can both be impactful and commercially viable at a scale. She also last year was a member of the Cascador grant group, and she, at the end of it all, she was successful. So she's here this evening to share with us how to put our documents together, how to put our house in order, so that when we too begin to apply for such grants as business leaders, as women of faith, we're able to make the impact we desire in our different spaces. Omowunmi, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me. All right, fantastic. Thank you for having me, Eboa, and to everyone on this call. I don't take it for granted, and I do hope that within the next 40 minutes, I will be able to share a few things that would help you secure the funding you need for your business. One thing I would really like to correct, when I saw the flyer and the theme of the meeting, I told Eboa, okay, Cascador isn't grants, it's debt funding. They do debt, they do equity, but I'll throw more light into that in my presentation. But beyond that, I'm hopeful that at the end of this meeting, beyond Cascador, that we begin to seek out other opportunities. I'm still seeking out other opportunities to raise alternate funding for the business. I believe as CEOs, our major job for our business is to be strategic, put our businesses out there, and then just ensure that we're securing the funds the business needs. We'll leave the day-to-day operations for our teams to run, and then we focus on the strategy. So without wasting all your time to share my screen.
Is it me, or is it frozen, or is from my end?
Yes, it seems she's frozen. But just give her a few minutes. I'm sure she'll be back soon.
Okay, all right.
So while we're waiting, I think we can still drum up more participation.
My apologies. My network just threw me off, but I've changed my network source. Apologies for that. Before I was taking off the call, I couldn't share my screen. Can I be enabled to share my screen? Please confirm if you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I still am not enabled to share my screen.
Sorry, Fear, you are the host now. Please make her a co-host.
Trying
Okay,
to.
so while that
Just go ahead.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. So
I'm
while
sorry. Though.
okay, that's fine. So while that's being done, I'll share a bit of my story, which is really how I intend to start this presentation, and how I went from where I was to what happened last year. I released the catalytic funds last year. So I've been an entrepreneur for a few years now. And like most of us, I started my business by bootstrapping. Um, and of course, we all understand how difficult it is when you bootstrap. And sometimes you wake up, you're not certain you're going to meet payday. You're not certain how you're going to keep your doors open, but you keep grinding and you keep doing the best. Beyond that, one of the things I've always done from day one was I tried to know the important documents to keep, the important data to keep, right? Immediately my business was 1 year. We started filing we started doing our audited financials. So we've always had that, and I ensure that we do not miss that. So that's how we started, right? And how did I know to do that? Because I ensure that I always would be in rooms where different professionals were speaking, tax auditors, lawyers, and I would always ask, what are the things I need to do to ensure that I'm not found wanting, right? So I knew when you had to file your payee, when you had to do your TCC, when you had to do your tax auditing. So even if we were not big, we ensured that we were doing that as soon as we were eligible to do that. So we had always done that. And because we had done that, at some point when the business had grown to a certain level, we could approach the bank to take some form of asset finance. And this was when we wanted to expand from just being a retail pharmacy to owning laboratories. Starting, okay, let me try now. Yes, this is.
Yes, you can share now.
Yes, I can. All right. Okay. So, like I said, we had grown the business and we were able to approach the bank into raising some debt funding, asset finance, and we had that. But then again, things were still tight, and I just felt there had to be a way out. Now in 2024, before then, for the number of years I had been running my business, it was strange that I'd never thought about grants. I didn't know much about grants initially. I really knew nothing about grants. And suddenly I started having some conversations with people and I knew, oh, there's actually a way to raise funds. And this is funding that I don't necessarily need to pay back. And so when I thought about that, I did my research. And when I looked at what it would take to apply for grants, it was a lot. So the first thing I did, I went into a school, SGS, School of Grant Writing. I just wanted to understand the basics. And at that school, you were we're given a lot of assignments. And I ensured I always did those assignments, had my pitch decks, just ensured I did everything. And on the last week, when I was going to round up that school, they gave us a list of grants that we could apply for, and Cascador was one of them. Now, interestingly, 2021, I had stumbled on Cascador and I had applied, but I got rejected. So this time around, Cascador came in, and initially I was reluctant because I felt, oh, I had applied to these guys before and I think I wasn't successful. So I didn't want to do it. But then I just decided to do it, and I applied at the last week, the week Cascador was going to end. That's when I applied. And I remember I submitted 20 minutes to the deadline. Everyone and I belong to another group, and I always tell that story. I submitted my Cascador application 20 minutes to the deadline. And this was to show how reluctant I was to apply because I just felt they'll throw me out again. But then I did that. And interestingly, the next morning, I got an email saying I had made it into that stage. And I remember laughing to my husband, telling him, I don't think a lot of people applied to Cascador this year. I think any application they got, they just moved them to the next level because I'm like, I just submitted 20 minutes to the deadline and I made it through the next stage. I said, I just feel that they were looking for people, right? I'm sure they did not scrutinize my application. But then after that, of course, we had to go through a lot of due diligence. You would, that is when they start digging into your data. It was intense. So you're asked about your unit economics, you're asked about your financials, you're asked about your team, you're asked about how you make money, your runway. There were certain terms I had never heard before. You were asked about runway, you were asked about your LTV, and I'm like, what are these people talking about? I just want to win a grant. I just want money to run my business. But then it was an interesting journey because for every time they asked questions, I would go and do research. I would sit down with my team. We had bookkeepers, but then I also had accountants who consulted for us. I will sit down and I will research. We will submit our documents. And why am I saying this? Basically, to tell us the importance of ensuring that you have the right documents. I don't have a brief as to the kind of entrepreneurs I'm speaking to, but I want to believe it's a mix, right? I'm sure we have people who are already running big businesses here. We have people who run mid-sized businesses, and we have people who are maybe just coming into the entrepreneurial space. Wherever you're playing, right, it's very important that you keep your data. It's very important that you have your books right, because when you want to apply for certain kinds of funding, if it's equity finance, if you want to get equity, you want to get debt finance, you want to apply for grants, they would always ask for certain documents because they'll always do their due diligence. If you think about it, if any of you wants to invest in a business, even if it is just ₦1 million you want to put in a business, you will still ask that person for some information because you just want to ensure that you're not throwing your money away, right? Why would I give you 1 million to throw away when I could just use that money to shop and do something for myself? And that's the same way this bodies think, right? They want to do their due diligence. Anyway, so we went through that whole process and I made it to the finals. And that was when I realized that over 300 people had applied. Over 300 people had applied. This was in 2024. And only eight of us made it into Cascador 2024. And it was an interesting journey, right? So, and from 2024, we went through an intense 6 months training. Now that 6 months was virtual and in person. But what Cascador did was it helped you understand your role as a CEO. It helped you understand what you should be focusing on in your business. Many times we are focused on our day-to-day. We are focused on operations, right? But it helped us understand that your customers should really be your focus. Your customers, right? Your growth strategy, understanding where you want to play, right? Should be your focus. And that helped us. And then January 2025, so you just going through the Cascador program, just going through that 6 months program, at the end of it, you get $5,000. And it's called I think it's called the self-development fund or something. So it's not money you need to put in your business. If you want to put it in your business, fine. If you want to spend it on yourself, fine, right? Cascador really doesn't care. But you would, when we applied, you had to do like a 200,000 naira commitment just to ensure that you were going to do the whole journey. And at the end of it, you get refunded your 200K as well as the $5,000, right? So just going through that whole 6 months process, at the end of it, you get a $5,000 grant, as it were. Even during the 2024 stints, right? At the end of it, we had a pitch day competition, and that pitch day competition, you would pitch your business. You actually had real investors. They pitch your business, and people who had businesses that were heavy on impact could win. I remember 2 businesses won. One won $20,000 grant for being heavy on impact. Another won $20,000 for being heavy on the business, for having very clean, scalable businesses. And so Cascador, just being in that class, he actually had options of winning money. We also have someone who won $10,000 for being voted as the best classmate in my cohort. Then in 2025, Cascador decided something. They realized that most entrepreneurs, not all of us really needed the knowledge. Many of us had established businesses, right? We knew our customers, we knew our processes. That's not really what we want. We actually need access to funds. We need access to funds that are cheap, or access to funds that are patient, that would help us grow our business. And that was when Cascador decided to come up with the catalytic fund intervention, and I applied again for that. So last year was the first time it happened, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to apply. It was intense. I would kid you not, it was very intense. But at that period, I think we were about 17 or so. I think 17 or 18 who applied for that, and maybe 7 or 8 of us, I don't remember, made it to the finals. And for all of us who made it to the finals, only 2 people did not get their full ask. The 6 of us got everything our full ask, right? So this is just giving you a background to my story on Cascador. So this is me, and this is when I won the funding last year. So for my business, I was able to raise 225 million, but it is not grants. It is debt finance. So it's money I'm going to pay back, right? The way and you get to structure it how you want. You either take it as a lump sum, or you decide to take it as a credit line. That's an overdraft. I decided to take mine as an overdraft. And then we also had people that needed Cascador, and that Cascador said, you know what, I can invest in your business. So Cascador also decided to take equity in some businesses, right? It was up to you. But why is Cascador not doing grants yet? Because they want this money to revolve. The white man there, Dave DeLucia, is the CEO of Cascador, and it literally is his money. And Sterling Bank partnered with him on it, right? So for every amount they brought, Sterling Bank brought the matching fund, right? And that's how we got to generate that fund. So having said this whole background, the focus is how then do you get into Cascador? And this journey is not just about getting into Cascador. It's how do you get into any accelerator? How do you get to win any grants? And Cascador is more of an impact investment company. So they're impact investors. They're very big on companies that are heavy on impact, but are also profitable or growing, right? Cascador would not invest in you just because you are making money. They want to find out what you're doing, how is it impacting lives? And so you see them very big in health, big in agri, big in education, and yes, also in tech, right? But they're heavy on impact investment, right? There's some companies that got into Cascador in 2025 cohort. They were not necessarily profitable, but you could see their growth path. And there were some who were profitable, but did not get in. So how then do you get into Cascador? So first and foremost is your business impact driven? And how do you know a business that is impact driven? It's one that is going somewhere to impact the life of one person in the world, right? One or more people. Of course, the higher the number, the bigger the scale, right? So it's not just about making money. If you talk about your business and you're just talking about how you make X amount from doing Y, that's not the kind of business Cascador would focus on. But Cascador is focused on how your intervention is impacting the lives of millions of people, whether Nigerians or people outside the world. Sometimes even if it's poor people. We have a business that David has decided to be on the board of that business. And why? Why is he interested? When he decided to be on the board of that business, they were not profitable, but they were focused on northern female traders. That's NIT microfinance. So their focus is granting access to these northern female traders to have the funds they need to run their business and help them grow their business, right? And Dave is very interested in businesses like that. So that's where it starts from. Is your business impact driven? Now, if we have answered this question and our businesses are impact driven businesses, then we move to the next stage, right? How do you become eligible for Cascador? So first and foremost, Cascador is interested again in you, the owner of the business. While they're interested in the business, right, Cascador also focuses on you, the owner of the business. So first is, are you the CEO or founder of that business? So they're not. You may be the COO of your business, but they're not interested in you because they want people who can take decisions about that business. So you could be the CEO, you could be the founder, you could be the co-founder, right? But you have to be at the apex of that company. So that's the number one eligibility criteria. Second is your business 2 years and above? And is it based in Nigeria? It has to be based in, okay, this year they are opening to other companies outside Nigeria. Prior to now, it had to be based in Nigeria, but I've seen that this year they're they're open to other countries, other businesses outside of Nigeria, but still within Africa. So that's the second eligibility criteria. And then now again is your revenue. Are you doing 100 million and above per annum? It's a very critical one. I think it used to be 50 million, but they've moved it to 100 million. So these are the numbers, the top three criteria to join Cascador. And beyond Cascador, if you're applying to any grants, you also want to find out what's the criteria, what are they looking out for? Sometimes they ask, is it a female-owned business? As a woman, do you own up to 50% of the shares in that company? Or is it, and sometimes you have grants that are focused on health. And if you are in ed tech and you go for a grant focused on health, obviously you have missed that criteria, you won't get in. So the number one thing is you want to check, are you eligible for this? So for Cascador, these are the top three criteria to join Cascador. There's a fourth one. And the fourth one they look at is, does your business have runway? What do I mean by runway? Runway basically looks at how much you spend in your business. And it looks at, I'm trying to make it easy, right? It looks at the funds you have and the expenses you make. So breaking it down, if you currently have 10 million in your business, if you have 10 million as your cash reserves and your runway, and every month you spend 3 million in expenses, and maybe your revenue isn't that high yet, maybe you're not making revenue that covers your expenses, that means you have a runway of roughly 3 months, because by the fourth month, your cash reserves will not cover your expenses. So Cascador also looks at that. You look at, and why are they looking at that? The initial program takes roughly 6 months. And so what that means is if you join Cascador and you have a runway of 4 months, your business will not be alive to end the 6 months. So they also look at that. So if you don't have enough runway, you may not make it in, right? Because they will look at your numbers, they'll crunch your numbers and ask you that. So that's another thing you want to look at, right? So many of us who run maybe retail businesses, right, where your revenue covers your expenses, this would not necessarily be an issue for you. But for those who are in startups, who run startups, right, where you're trying to prove a concept, you're trying to get into the market, you're trying to get more users, more downloads and all that, and you are burning cash every day, every month, right? The money you have, so maybe you raised funds somewhere, and the funds you raise is literally what's keeping that business. What that means is your business may not be alive if you're unable to raise additional funding. And that's why Cascador will say if you don't have a runway of more than 6 months, it also might reduce your chances of getting in. But these are the top three criteria. So if we have crossed this, then we move to the next level, which is, what is the problem? So I found that when I joined the grants writing school, every time you had to ask, you had to explain this, what problem are you solving? And when you're going to state this, for those of us who eventually make it to Cascade, and I really do hope that some people in this business will make it in, you'll find out that Dave is a man of few words. He just wants you to state it, no stories and all. And it's the same thing with many grants. State it in the simplest language as possible. When you're stating your problem, a 5-year-old should understand it. What is your problem? We solve A for people of this nature. We solve access to finance for underserved women in northern Nigeria, right? So you want to make your problem as simple as possible, but it also means that you also need to understand why you are in business. So what problem are you solving? The next thing is, who are you solving this problem for? And that means, who is your customer? I struggle with this a bit, right? Because I'm in the healthcare industry. Typically, and I run the retail pharmacy, I run laboratories. Everybody needs medication at some point, right? Either providing medicines for children, for middle age, or for the elderly. And so, like, everybody's my customer, right? But we found out that when we got into Cascador, there were certain exercises we had to do, and that helped us narrow down on our customer base. So one question you would be asked is, who is your customer? Meaning, who are you solving that problem for, right? So if you're in the fashion industry, right, who are you making your clothes for? Are you making your clothes for young women, for for plus size women, right? Who is your ideal customer? It's very important that you're able to ask that question. You're able to answer that question. And then the next thing is, why are you the best person to solve that question, to solve that problem? Why do you think you are the best person to solve that problem? And this speaks to your solution. So we have the problem. What is your solution? I'll give you an example for us at XCare, right? One of the problem we identified was access to basic care. We realized that the average Nigerian would go to multiple touch points. So you go to the pharmacy, you go to the lab, and eventually go to the hospital, right? Just to access basic care, right? That was the problem we're solving for the average Nigerian. And why were we the best people to solve that problem? And that was because we had an integrated system. So our pharmacies were not just pharmacies that sell medication. We were pharmacies where you come in, you're able to access diagnostics, you're able to access immunization, and you're able to access referral to secondary care if you need it. So we had that integrated model. And that was why we answered that we are in the best place to solve this problem of access to primary care. So that's one important thing you must be able to answer. Why? And that speaks to your solution. Why are you the best person to solve this question, to solve this problem? Now, moving on, you now want to ask, right, how big is the opportunity? Here, especially for those of us who are in tech, we tend to want to give some very big, bogus numbers. One thing I'll caution you here is just be realistic. Be realistic, right? Don't come and say, oh, the skincare industry is a 1 trillion market industry, $1 trillion market industry, and I'm positioned to take 10% of that. Nobody's in there because even they know that you know that is not possible, right? So yes, we want to speak big, we want to speak positive and all that, but yeah. Let's be realistic here, right? So here is where just be realistic. Just be realistic. So how do you think about it? So what's the skincare? Let's speak to the skincare industry. What is the size of the skincare industry, the global skincare industry, right? But you and I know that the likelihood that you start serving women in South Korea right now is slim. So let's focus on maybe your current market. So what's the skincare industry in Nigeria? Why we start there. Now, what's the skincare industry? Do you play in Lagos or are you pan-Nigeria? If you're pan-Nigeria, you can now start talking to your addressable, your available market, which is where are you found? Now, if you play in Lagos, can we narrow it down to Lagos? So what's the size of the markets in Lagos? Now we have narrowed it down to Lagos. Where is your store? Is your store in Lekki? So if your store is in Lekki, you cannot start saying that, oh, I'm going to serve the woman in Festac, the woman in Badagry, the woman in Opik, right? Again, we want to be realistic. So can you say, oh, I am positioned to take 10% of this size of the market? Now, what this tells investors is that you've thought through it and you are realistic. You're not just coming to quote numbers from ChatGPT here, right? So you want to look at it, how big is the opportunity? But on the flip side is, if the opportunity in your space is small, it can also mean that this market is going to get very saturated. I'm trying to think of a market that has very, I'm trying to think of one. So let me see. Off the top of my head, I can't think. Let me, for one of the, let's talk about maybe the wristwatch industry, right? And we are making wristwatches for grandmothers, right? And your customer are women. So grandmothers, women aged 60 and above, and you want to make wristwatches for them, right? And so people start thinking that, oh, okay, you want to make wristwatches for these women, but these women can also use their phones, right? These women typically at some point don't even use wristwatches, right? Because they are typically at home, right? So sometimes the investors start thinking that this market, right? Is this market really, really worth it, right? Or can we grow? Can this market really grow? So if the market cannot grow, that means that at some point it becomes saturated and you just plateau there. So it's just one way to think around how big the opportunity in your market is and being able to communicate that effectively. The next thing is traction. And traction is very important because recall that Cascador says you should have, your business has to have been running for at least 2 years. And now you should have generated revenues of 100 million or more. Now, in terms of traction, even if your business does not have a straight line going to heaven, meaning it's not growing, it's not a problem. Trust me, for Cascador, it's not a problem. So you could have been at a point where your business was growing, it plateaued, and then maybe it dipped, right? It's not a problem. State it, but be very honest about your numbers, because when you try to quote it, they will find out. They have some strong financial analysts in Cascador. So they will find out. So just state it as plain as it is, but you should be able to explain why the dips have happened and what your plans are to reverse that trend, right? So these are some of the things Cascador will look in terms of interaction. What is your revenue? Meaning, how much have you generated in your business? What are your margins? Is your business profitable? Or are you making 100 million but spending 150 million, meaning that your margins are negative, right? How many customers do you have? Right? It's one question that they'll always ask you. So it's very important, if we do not keep our customer data, it's very important that we begin to do that, because they'll always, and we were lucky, right? Right from time at XCare, one of the things that we always is when you come, you just ask, can we have your name? Can we have your number? But because we just wanted to have our customer data to be able to churn it and get insights from that. So Cascador is big on that. They will not ask you to show them the names of your customers and their numbers, but they want to know how many customers do you have, and can you prove that you have this number of customers, right? And are your customers growing? Are they returning? If all your customers are new, that means maybe your business is not so sustainable, right? Meaning, I experience your business today, but I don't come back to transact with your business. So they also want to know, what is your retention rate, meaning how many people who patronize your business come back within a period. So you should have your data and be able to explain it. Do you run a spa? So if I experience your services in your spa, do I come back in another 3 months, in 6 months, or is it just one time and I'm gone? You should have that. You should have your your average price per unit. So they typically will ask some of those questions. You should have your LTV, your CAC, your cost of acquiring a customer. So they ask some of these questions. Now, some of these terms, right, you wouldn't know it, right? But this is where I remember when I was applying, I think I had just started getting into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was going to send me to where I did not know, because it was just giving me some instructions and I have no idea what this is, right? I remember ChatGPT told me I had a runway of 6. And when I submitted it, somebody on Cascador called me and said, you have a runway of 6. That means your business is going to shut down in 6 months. And I said, no, my business is not shutting down. And the person said, but this is what your data said. And I said, no. We have, because we generate revenue every day, our revenue more than covers for our expenses. And I said, that means that your runway is to infinity. I had no idea, right? But ChatGPT was just going to send me astray, right? But these are some of the things you would learn. Of course, LTV, is the lifetime value of a customer, meaning how much can you make from this customer in a duration. Some of these things you would know, some of these things you don't know, right? Some of them are not so critical for you to enter Cascador. The ones that are very critical, your revenue, your margins, your customers, your average price per unit, you need to know this, right? The LTV and CAC, it would be good to know, so that during your interviews, right, you can speak to that if you are ever asked those questions. And then they'll ask you, how do you make money, right? How are you making your money? Can you explain to a 5-year-old how you make money, right? So do you have different product ranges? Do you make money daily from sale of products, or do you have one big customer that when the customer orders, you make money from it? So they would want to know how you make money. So this speaks to your traction. Sorry, I know I'm running out of time, but I'll try to hurry up. The next thing Cascador would ask you, and any grants you apply for will ask you, is your competition. Please, I'll advise us here, right? Don't try to paint a picture of competition is irrelevant. That actually sends the wrong signals to investors, right? So what they want to know is, do you know your competition? How are you better than your competition? But more importantly, how is your competition better than you, right? So they want to know that you are aware of it, right? You are aware of it. It's not necessarily that they will drop your business and go for your competition. But when you come into a case, when you come in and say, oh, no, we're the best in this market, competition is irrelevant, it actually sends the wrong signals to your investors, sorry. So it's very important you know your competitors, and just one of there's this competitor grid that you could use. For those of us who know how to use Canva, they have some templates you can use, or just Google it, right? There's a competitor grid where you talk about yourself, your competitors, and the different attributes. So what are the attributes you have? What are the attributes your competitor has? So I'll give an example. A competitor in my space would be MedPlus. What are the attributes MedPlus has? They're very visible. They have a widespread, right? They're in every state. So that's the strength they have. I don't have a strength, but I'm aware of that. So I wrote it down, right? It's a strength they have. MedPlus is also very strong when it comes to supplements, skincare ranges, and all. It's not a strength we had as a then in XX. So we wrote it down, right? This is what our competitors have that we don't have, right? But then we also wrote what we have that our competitors don't have, right? So that's how they want to see your competitor landscape. Don't go and seek for the attributes. Your business, you tick positive for everything, and your competitors have X, 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 X everywhere. Obviously, that will send the wrong signal for when you talk about your competitors. So next, we'll be looking at your projections, right? Every grant, I'm currently applying for a grant, and I was doing my projections yesterday, oh God, and I was working with Claude on it, right? Because I had to convert my numbers to USD, and I had to talk about my projections, and so it was just a lot of back and forth, right? But why do they ask about your projections? Because we want to see how big are you thinking, and how aware are you of your space, and what are your plans, right? So don't just come and write numbers. It's very easy to say, oh, next year I'll do 1 billion, 2 years I'll do 2 billion and all that. How are you going to do that, right? Because when you're writing that I'm going to expand so if I did maybe 500,000 this year, and I'm writing that I'm going to do 1 billion next year, one of the things investors want to look at is, okay, how is she going to make this 1 billion? Is it by selling to the same number of customers? Or is she going to expand it to other locations that would give her more customers? Now, if she's expanding to other locations, has it reflected in her cost? Because if I say that my revenue is going to grow because I'm going to expand into other locations, then I should see that my cost will grow. The cost of opening new locations, right? And other, am I going to raise external more funding, or is the business going to fund this, right? So this is what you want to look at in your projections. So when you make projections, typically they'll ask you to do like a 3-year projection, and you just want to explain your reasoning around your projection. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. You just want to see how you're thinking through it, right? And really, as businesses, we actually should have a 3 to 5 year forecast. Again, as a last year, for those of us who forecasted 3 years ago, into 3 years, nobody, well, okay, maybe none of us here, I don't believe any of us here would have forecasted that Trump would go and bomb Iran this year. I don't think anybody forecasted that. And in forecasting that your diesel cost was going to go through the roof, right? We didn't forecast that, but it has happened, right? So that's why I'm saying we can forecast. It doesn't have to be accurate. But the most important thing is you have forecasted, and of course, these are your plans, and you have thought through your costs, right? So these are a couple of things that you'll be looking at. The next thing is your team. Your team is very important. Very, very important. I know that sometimes when we start our businesses, you run the business by yourself. You are the CEO, you are the CEO, you are the cashier, you are the you are the procurement officer, you are the salesperson. It's fine to start that way. Many businesses will start that way. There's this book I always recommend to entrepreneurs, E-Meet Revisited. And in E-Meet Revisited, it actually tells you that when you start, you should have your organogram. And in your organogram, when you think about your business in the next 500 or 1,000 years, what do you want your business to look like then? Obviously, in another 5, 10, 50, 100 years, you don't plan for your business to be where it is today. So project your business in 100 years. Now draw that organogram of what your business will look like in 100 years. So that means you're going to have a HR department. Put your name as the head of HR. You're going to have an IT department. Put your name as the head of IT. You're going to have a procurement department. Put your name there. Now think through these roles. What are the JDs you want for these roles, right? Right. And as you think of it, it means that as you grow, you begin to fill these roles. So one of the things that investors look at again is who is your team? Who is on your team? Now, especially for people who raise maybe seed funding, when you're raising pre-seed funds or seed funds, many times that company doesn't have some strong traction. Sometimes the investors look at the team. So are these people who we can trust to do this? So is this somebody who maybe so let's assume you're running an agri-tech business and they're looking at the team. They see that this person has worked in another agri-tech business that has scaled 10x. So they know, oh, this person is coming with experience. This person has worked in another company. Maybe this company was purely tech, right? Or purely finance. And this person is coming. And so they're looking at this and say, these two people coming together, they are going to do magic. So they invest in those people, right? Now, sometimes it's also different, right? And your team can be just you and one person. I'll give an example. There was this lady who was on Cascador Accounting Hub, right? I'm sure many of us know Accounting Hub. Accounting Hub has a fantastic model, right? And if I recall, Shema is like the brain behind Accounting Hub, right? She has a team, but when you look at it, right, as at then, she was the main person around Accounting Hub. And I know it was a feedback that was given to say, okay, you need to work on your team, but that did not prevent Cascador from bringing her in because she had a fantastic business, successful business and all. So we also want to see how big is your team. You can come in as a CEO and the people on your team are low, right? That doesn't mean you will not get in. For Cascador, you will still get in if your business is one that has ticked all the other boxes. But by the time you're leaving Cascador, they will work on you to build a proper team. So they want to see how big is your team and how deep is your team. Now, if you have a team, here's where you want to put in your top guys. So of course you put yourself, you put your you sell yourself, right? Who are you? What have you done? Where have you been? So CEO this, X, for me it was X GSK, X this, right? And then if you have a CEO, who is your CEO? Why is this person your CEO? What does this person bring to the table? So this is where you speak to your team, and of course with their pictures and their pedigree. It's very important that this is done. And I'm almost rounding up, right? So as we come towards the end, right, what then do we now need to do to get ready? When I applied in Cascador in 2024, it was tedious, but it was because I had gone through a grant writing school. The processes were similar to what I had done there. In fact, the pitch deck I submitted, because you're going to submit a pitch deck, the pitch deck I submitted was literally my assignment at that grant writing school that I just changed the lead. So, and I just submitted it. When I looked at my pitch deck, I laughed a lot, right? Because it's scattered. But it took me, right? So when you're coming in now, for the 2025 cohort, I heard it was a bit more technical. And then, of course, for 2026, it's going to be a little more technical. But what are some of the things you need to get ready? And because I've applied for a number of grants, it's pretty much the same thing. So you're going to fill the application, right? And for Cascador, they're very particular about your word count. For some cases, you see 20 words. Sometimes you see 20 characters, right? And this is where you will need, working with AI will help you, right? So you have put your thought process, and then maybe your sentence is 100 words, and the limit is 20 words. Take it to ChatGPT or Claude and give it a prompt to maintain your tone, maintain what you're trying to say, but shrink it to 20 words or less, right? And it's able to do that, and then you carry it and copy it and paste there, so that way you meet it right. So that speaks to answering the questions. you have a lot of documents to submit. You will most likely be asked to submit of course, your CAC. You'll be asked to submit your financials, your audited financials for the last 2 to 3 years. These are some, I know those 2 are critical documents you'll be asked to submit. You're going to design a pitch deck. Now you see everything we have talked about, your problem, the problem you're solving, the customer, your solution, your traction, your team, right? The impact you're making, everything must be on your pitch deck, right? So the pitch deck you submit, and sometimes they give you a limit to say your pitch deck should not exceed 7 slides, right? So you're going to prepare a pitch deck and do this. Now in your pitch deck, they're particular about the information, right? Not about the beauty of the deck. So sometimes you can have a very beautiful deck and you're just saying all sorts, right? And also they want a pitch deck that's given the right information. But having said that, let our pitch deck be beautiful, right? Claude can design a pitch deck for you in 5-10 minutes, right? Just give it the right prompts and it will design your pitch deck, right? So thank God for AI. Thank God for AI, right? I have 3 major meetings next week, and guess what I'm going to use in designing my pitch deck, right? So thank God for AI. So yes, you have to have a pitch deck. You're also going to upload videos. So in that video, they want to know about you. They're going to ask you certain questions. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Please be as honest as possible. Don't come and try to show that you're Superman. No. Be honest about your strengths, right? I know that I can do this. This is my way. No, this is not where you come and say I have no weaknesses. No. If anger management, if micromanaging is a weakness, right? Say it. Cascador is one program that is really focused about you, the founder. So say it, right? Like I said, you talk about your financials. So this is for stage 1. If you make it through stage 1, you're going to have stage 2. In stage 2, you're going to do another pitch deck. Now, this pitch deck, you're going to provide more details, right? And so at that point in time, they're asking your unit economics. So your unit economics is, how many units of this did you sell? How much did you make? What is your gross margin on this line? So imagine me. I'm in a retail pharmacy. I have 4,000 SKUs. So when they ask me that, because I'm like, wait, what's Cascador asking me? You want me to come and tell you the number of Panadol I sell and all that? Of course, I have to brainstorm, and I found a way to answer that question. So they break it down. They want to see your gross margin. Here, you're also going to do another financials, right? They'll ask you more information on your financials. So for stage 2, I would typically advise that you have your accountant with you. You are going to work hand in hand with your accountant. I'll give you something. I'll explain something that happened to me. So when we were doing stage 2, I think it was stage 2 or stage 1, I don't remember. And we're uploading our financials. I was working with our audited financials. My accountant was working with our management report. So on the P&L side, right, I had put in the data on the P&L. On the balance sheet side, he had put in the data for the management report. So there were some discrepancies. And I didn't know we submitted it like that. Guess what? Cascador flagged it. And during the next, so they asked me a question. Explain this. How did this happen? At that point, I thought, oh my goodness, I've lost out, right? I made a mistake. They're going to drop me. So I asked the accountant, what did we do? Right? And guess what? I was honest. I told them that this is the mistake we made. I worked on the audited financials. The accountant worked on the management report, and I submitted both documents, and I apologized. And they said it was fine, but I should be careful about making such mistakes in future, right? And they said it was fine, and they let me go. So you have a stage 2, right, where you submit more information, and then you have stage 3. Now, this was the process as of 2024, right? Stage 3 is you have a one-on-one with Dave, right? Dave will call you, and my advice to everyone here, when you get to that one-on-one stage, no stories. Just go straight to the point. And please make sure that your internet is very strong. Go straight to the point. They will ask you, have you failed in business before? Don't hide it. Say it. Guess what? They actually respect founders who have failed in businesses and have bounced back. They actually respect founders, right? So don't come and pretend that all is dandy. Open up, tell them, right? And this is what you learned, and these are certain things you are doing to ensure that you don't make such mistakes again, right? So this is what happens in stage 3. Now, between 2024 and now, the Cascador team has expanded. Recently on LinkedIn, they now have a COO. So I want to believe that the stages may be a bit different, right? Maybe the loops you would have to go through may be a bit more intense. But at the end of the day, right, Cascador is a business that is focused on you, the founder. They're really big on making you succeed. Very, very big on making you succeed. And I really would hope that many of us here get on it, right? So this is typically what happens through the interview stage. So I'll round up with talking about some of the benefits of being in Cascador. I can speak to this because I'm one of the cohorts in Cascador, right? You have access to a mentor. Your mentor literally holds your business like their own, right? I have times when my mentor is, if I remember when I was still thinking about applying for the catalytic fund, my mentor called me and said, Kristen, are you applying for this one? And I said, I'm still thinking about it. I said, my dear, go and apply for it. He literally said, go and apply for it. And he said, if I was your age, I would still, and I had access to this, I would jump on it, right? So that's one of the things you have. You have access to a mentor, you have access to a wide network, right? A wide network of people that you can always relate with. One of these Cascador helps is your journey as an entrepreneur is less lonely, right? You literally can call some of the people, the board of Cascador, and relate with them, tell them some of the challenges you're going through. Not necessarily because they will give you money, but sometimes one advice here or there, sometimes they'll listen to you, right? So the journey with Cascador is less lonely. And then I spoke to funding. I talked about the 5 million, the 10 million, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. These are all monies you can win for free. The 5,000, just by getting into Cascador, you already get that, right? And completing the program, you get that. Then during your cohort, during your 6 months, if you're able to win your pitch competitions, you're able to get 10,000, 20,000. And then, of course, when they did the funding, it started with 2 million, but now they've increased it to 5 million catalytic funding. But the catalytic funding, like I said, is not grants, it's debt, because they want the money to go around. I have access to my overdraft for the next 4 years. So, and it turns, and they made the conditions so beautiful, right? So that the banks cannot stifle you, right? They made the conditions so beautiful. So, these are some of the benefits of joining Cascador. I'm sorry, I know I have gone beyond my time, but at this point in time, I'll take as many questions as possible. Thank you for having me.
Wow, thank you so much, Omowunmi. Thank you so much. This is such an amazing session. This is a master class, if I'm not mistaken. And they really appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty, and your practical ideas. And like you said, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. So it's so great. It's so good to see that Cascador is focused on us being vulnerable, being authentic, and being transparent. A lot of us tend to see failure as a problem, but really and truly, if we know that failure is a part of the success process, then it will not be such a big deal. So thank you so much for your transparency and your authenticity. We will take questions now. If you have questions, please put up your hand while I quickly check the chat room for any questions. Thank you. Is there a hand up? I hear noise on my phone, but I can't see any hand. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's my network.
Yes, ma'am. I do have a question.
I couldn't see you. Go ahead.
Okay, so quick one. Thank you so much to our speaker. I think really, really helpful session. There's, you don't know what you don't know, essentially. So you've just really opened our eyes to a whole new vista, I would say. So I want to ask a question regarding drilling down to your ideal customer. And I know that, well, I think it's something that I have struggled with. I'm in the education space, so largely around schools and also online education. You mentioned that you moved from thinking you served everyone with access to medication and pharmaceutical products to drilling down to being a provider of access to primary health care. I'm wondering, is there a way to actually do that? Is there something that you can share with us that this is how to drill down to the exact person or group of people that you are serving or that you're uniquely placed to serve? Yeah, so that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, all right, beautiful. So I'll speak to how we went about it. The first thing we did was we went back to study our data. So initially I said, we're serving everyone. And then we went back and studied our data to say, okay, first and foremost, what are the products we typically sell? right? So in thinking that we served everyone, I also assumed that even in that everyone, our highest chunk of customers were the elderly, because we felt that, so we have a service called refill service where people who are on chronic medications, people who are treating diabetes, hypertension, and whatnot, right, typically come to refill their medication with us. And you see them every time. We see them every month. So at some point, I narrowed it down to say, okay, that was a high chunk of our customer segment. But by the time we studied our data, we realized that we had two customer categories. Our primary customers were young, middle-aged customers who typically had growing families, right? So of course we couldn't say this was their specific age, but we had an age range, right? They had growing families, they had young children, and they were working, right? And they wanted access and convenience. So that was our primary category. Our secondary category were the elderly, who of course came to refill their medications with us. Now, how did we do the first thing we did was we went to study our data. I recall I said that we always used to sell to customer names. So we looked at it that these people, what are the products they buy, right? And what do these products typically do? So that helped us narrow down. Another thing we did was we also in knowing who your customer is, right? You also want to ask what does your customer want? What is your customer's need? Right. So we did surveys. I remember that year we ran some surveys, and in that survey, we did it across our different branches. We came up with a list of questions saying ranging from what would you want to see more here? We asked questions around so at some point we gave them open-ended questions where they could put in their thoughts, and then we asked closed-ended questions where they could just pick options, because we just really wanted to have an idea what our customers wanted. Now, in that survey, we also had an idea, right? Oh, that these are our customers and this is what they want. But it was interesting to see that some of the things we thought our customers wanted ranked the least on that survey, right? We thought, I think, if I remember the questions we asked, pricing was there, range of products, and a couple of other questions. It was interesting to see that the things we never thought would be important were things that customers flagged as being important, right? And those we thought were important ranked the list, right? So that survey helps. Another thing Cascador helped or asked us to do, this was an assignment in knowing your customers. We could also do like some focus group questions. So I remember for the laboratory services and for the pharmacy, we picked, I think we picked about 2-3 customers that we had like a short 10 minutes interview with. So, and it was more of open-ended questions. Why do you explore our services? Why do you do business with us versus this competitor down the road, right? So they told us why they had stayed with us. Another thing was, what are some of the things you hoped you would have, you hope to find with our business? So we asked them those questions, that what are some things that they want that they're not getting? They told us that, right? And then another question was, how can we improve, right? So having those focus group questions with our customers also helped us, right, expand our services to fit our customers. So it started with our data, and then after we churned our data and narrowed it down, then we had surveys, and then of course we had focus group questions.
Thank you so much. Does that answer your question, sister? Oh, I can't see.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Okay,
does. Yes, I think so. Basically, data and then surveys. So actually check with the current customers that you are actually serving what they want, and indeed, if there's any space that we can still fill. So really, thank you very much. I think it's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Do you have any other question for CEO? You know, CEO is my son's Ogah. She hired my son during summer internship, so he's a hard worker. He's a happy helper. He has already asked me, "Is that Mrs. Ogah?" I said, "Yes, your guy is here." Do you have any more questions for CEO, or we want to let her go?
I have a truckload of questions. I just don't want to monopolize the conversation. If I can go, okay, fantastic. So I was going to ask, right? So you mentioned that you started out, having the discipline to collate all your data. So what if we don't have all that data, Yeah, so that's one question. A second question is, what's the benefit of taking equity funding? Is there, well, for me as a quote and unquote small medium enterprise, I'd be real wary of taking equity. Essentially, you're bringing people onto your board. So what's the benefit of that kind of outweighs any risks? And last question will be, are there any grant templates that we can use? Because for me, that's one of the challenges. When I want to sit down to it, I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if I'm doing the wrong thing. I just, and it's a lot of work that goes into it. So are there any templates that we can just use as a guide, and then perhaps as we go along, develop more capacity to do that? Yeah, so those are my questions. I've asked all of them at once. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Just to be sure, so you asked about the data. If you've not been collecting data, what do you do? Are there benefits to taking equity? I think that was the second question. And are there grant templates that you can lean on? Okay, so what our advice is, there's this popular saying that when you wake up is your morning. So if you've not been taking data in your business, now is the best time to start, right? Again, I think every business now should have some level of automation, some level of you should have automated some of your services, or you've added some bit of tech in your business, right? I don't want to believe that every business today is still using analog processes, meaning customers come in and you're just writing your receipts and all that, right? We should have a way of capturing their data. So if you've not been capturing data, now is a good time to start, because for every form of fund, I think the only place where you will not be asked about your customer data is if you're taking funds from the bank. If I think, I don't think that for any time I've applied for funding from the bank, I don't think there's been any time that they have asked me for my customer data, right? So yes, now is a good time to start. And what's one good data you want to have, right? The gender of the customers you serve. If you're able to take their names, fine and good. If you're able to take their numbers, taking their numbers serves you, right? Because you're able to follow up on your customers. You're able to market more services to those customers, right? It's not necessarily for anyone. If you have a way of getting their emails, right? Fantastic, right? You're able to do email marketing to them. But many of the grants out there, want to ask you some, especially for grants that are focused on female-led businesses. Sometimes they'll ask you, what is the percentage of your customers that are females? There was a grant I applied for one time. Beyond asking me what the percentage of my customers were females, he also asked their age range, right? How many of your customers fell within this age range and all that. So imagine if I wasn't taking, so for that one, I didn't have, because I wasn't taking their ages, I could only lean on our product categorization. We knew that people who are on refill medication typically fell within a particular age range. People who were patronizing maybe skincare ranges typically fell within an age range. So we just hazard a guess. So it's like working backwards to the answer. So these are some things that grants, equity, and VC funds may ask you, right? So now would be a good time to start keeping that data. It would help. Next to taking equity finance, what's the advantage to it? First is I would really, I don't have much experience in that, but from the little I know, if you don't need to take it, you don't need to take it, right? Yes, initially it's sweet money, it's patient money, but sometimes it's you need to ensure that your terms are clear. It's like a marriage, right? So you want to be sure that who you're inviting into the marriage of your company, you guys share the same values, because it can also get dirty. And if you're not careful, you can lose your company. If you're not careful, you can lose your company. So I would say, but then again, on the flip side is a 100% of a 10 million naira company versus 10% of a $1 billion company. So that's two different things. So that's another angle to look at it from when you take equity, right? one of the things you want to ask is if by taking equity, right, it's going to help your company grow by leaps and bounds. I stumbled on a short interview by Inya Boyeje. Inya Boyeje is the founder of Future Africa, co-founder of Andela and Flutterwave, right? So you know that he has built unicorns. And he said something in that it was kind of like maybe less than a 1 minute interview, right? That he's always that if you own a $10 million company, your likelihood of becoming a $1 billion company is small. But imagine if there are 5 people who own $10 million companies and they come together. And by coming together, right, you own this person owns that person owns this, right? They come together, they're able to build a $1 billion company, right? So you just want to look at it at both sides of the coin. One is when you take equity, you no longer have the full control of your business. You no longer take 100% decision on your business, right? But again, if you want to play big, right, sometimes you really need to bring partners in. It's just ensuring that your terms are clear, right? You don't want to sign terms that would make you lose your company. So before taking on the funds is sweet. Taking the funds is sweet, but if you do not look through those terms right, you could wake up one day and find out that you have just been reduced to a highly paid employee in your business. And also I would say that equity is not 100% bad, neither is it 100% good. It's just how do you approach it and what is the guidance you have in approaching it. Again, that's not the only way to grow your business, right? But I guess it's one of the fastest ways, especially for those in the tech space. We see the good ones, right? But then we've also had some nasty ones that did not turn out well. Now, to the third question as to a grant template, rather than saying this is a template, right? I forgot to share this part of my story. Before I raised the 225 million, I knew that the grant school I joined, School of Grant Writing, so what I learned there was good enough to get me into Cascador, but it wasn't good enough to get me to the next place I wanted, right? And so January 2025, I went into another grant writing school. This one is Fundraising Academy. Now, when I did School of Grant Writing in 2024, I just paid 50,000, right? And it was good. It helped me get into Cascador. When I did Fundraising Academy, right, I paid more. It was almost 500,000, right? And interestingly, it is run by the co-founder of Cascador, Blessing Mene. But there he opened my eyes, and it was a different learning. You know how you'll be in class. So typically our classes then used to hold on Saturdays from 6 p.m. And sometimes we will be in class till 1 a.m. and we are not ready to end the class. We are not ready because he literally broke it down. Now but we also know that not everybody may be liquid enough to pay 500K for because I think now it's 555,000 or so for the Fundraising Academy. But there's something he has done on his website. I'll look for, I think it's fundraisingacademy.com. I'll look for it and share with Eboa. He has two templates. So he has two programs. So there's one which is a done by you. That done by you is, I think you get a template and you download the video or something, and literally you just do it yourself. That would be just 55,000, right? So I think that would be my best guide to you having a template. And then there's the one which is the done with you, which is literally like what I did, where you attend classes and he works with you. Sometimes your business will be used as the model they will use for classes, right? And they'll help you build your pitch deck. I didn't know how to use Canva before. I knew about Canva, but I really didn't know my way around it. But I learned how to use Canva when I attended the Fundraising Academy. And now I don't use PowerPoint again, right? All my slides I build on Canva until recently that I started using ChatGPT. So that's it. So that I think that speaks to the brand, to the templates. I hope this answers your questions.
We're good?
Yes, I'm looking forward to getting the data on the Fundraising Academy. Thank you very much. I think that's Again, you don't know what you don't know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. You really
All
don't
right,
know
I
what you
have a
don't know.
question.
Okay, ma'am.
I'm so
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go
This is Nikhil Yedele, also from TOCI. All right. So are you going to share your contacts with us, or is there a way for us to maintain communication with you after this session?
Yes, Edward has my contact. Edward, please feel free to share my contact.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? It's been a long day, and I think it's 8:30, so that we allow those who are going to bed and going for first service start getting ready for church tomorrow. Okay, thank you so much. So can somebody please just close us in prayer? Let me see. I'm trying to pick somebody here. I'm so sorry. I'm using my phone. Sister Adeola, are you available? Can you just close us in prayer? And I want to just thank Omowunmi for taking our time to talk us through this process. And we believe very strongly that as women in TOCI, we'll be celebrating with ourselves very soon on our different grants and as our businesses scale up in Jesus' name. Sister Adeola, are you available to pray with us? There's Adeola and there's
Yes,
Deola. Oh, yes,
yes, I
Adeola, please
am.
go ahead. Thank you, ma. Go ahead.
Our Father and our God, we give you thanks for this time. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, even to walk into more of the blessings that you've prepared for us and our businesses. Thank you for our speaker. Thank you for Lord for allowing her to show us another way to upgrade ourselves. Lord, we bless you. Lord, we exalt your name. Our Father and our God, we ask, Lord, for courage for the people that want to step forward. We ask that you teach them and you help them, Lord, even to assess all that has been shown to them in the mighty name of Jesus. Our Father and our God, we ask, oh God, more than anything, Lord, that we continue to showcase your blessings in our lives in the mighty name of Jesus. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, even to learn. Lord, we ask that the Holy Spirit will strengthen us and help us and encourage us, Lord, even to move forward. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Omowunmi. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thanks all.